What would a Sean Fleirl clone who has lived a worse version of your life, let's say he grew up in Port Pirie, what would he do to try and destroy you?
lead a marginally more successful life than me. Have a job, have a bit more self-worth.
That would just be devastating.
No, you know
Imagine.
what? He wouldn't get into the arts. Look at me when I make sound financial and personal decisions in my life.
Imagine if that had been the plot of this, as Tom Hardy shows up, and he's just basically an exact clone of Jean-Luc Picard, but he got his shit together. That would make so much sense, because early on, like, he's complaining, like, I've just made the decision never to have kids. Oh, this might have been in the deleted scene, actually, when he's talking about how he never had kids, and he, decided to give everything to the Federation. What if he just shows up and he's really well-adjusted and has the, a good family and a job that isn't his whole life?
Yes,
good
look,
work-life
Picard.
balance.
Look, Picard. See my degree on the wall. No!
Look at this.
Damn it, Tom Hardy.
I've been practicing yoga for 4 years now.
Look how flexible I am, Picard. Can you do this?
How's your cholesterol, Jean-Luc? Engage! Destroy them!
Mine's at 15. Which is really upsetting, because I know my cholesterol's slightly higher than it should be, so cheers.
Fuck you, Clone Sean. Hello and welcome to One Good Thing, the podcast that will always be puzzled by the human predilection for piloting vehicles at unsafe velocities. It's because it elicits an adrenaline response followed by a cortisol release. Data. How have you not figured this out?
You're getting it.
At all?
You're getting it, Paul.
It's all chemistry. Anyway, I'm Paul Zahn, and I am joined here on the USS OGT Prize by Ensign Sean Fleirl.
Hello, I'm sad.
Oh no.
Because it's the end. We're getting towards there. We're at warp 9 towards the end.
It's a dangerous speed to go at. But the end is coming like a blissful release. Don't you worry about it. OG team, there's going to be plenty of stuff on the other side, I assume.
Just not one good thing.
Just not one good thing. Sean has dared us to go where no mainstream audience members have gone before. It's the 2002 Star Trek movie, Star Trek Nemesis.
The same blood runs through our veins.
It was as if part of me had been stolen. I must deactivate you. Why? Because you are dangerous.
Look in the mirror. See yourself.
I'm a mirror for you as well.
Don't be so vain.
So, let's get this straight. This is the fourth and final film featuring the cast of the second Star Trek series, The Next Generation, which was made in the 80s.
Yes.
Very basically, yeah.
Third TV series if you include the animated series for the original Star Trek that happened. But yes, the second cast, fourth film, 10th overall, and second, what will be the second lot of movies once we get into 2009 J.J. Abrams territory.
Oh, yes, of course. Because, yes, there were 6 movies made with the original 1960s cast, and then this is the last film before the 2009 soft reboot by J.J. Abrams.
Yes, and there was also Generations with the new gen cast that kind of bridged the gap between William Shatner's crew and Patrick Stewart's crew.
Yes, and had William Shatner getting crushed by a boulder or something.
It was great. He just straight up died.
Everybody loved it.
Especially Leonard Nimoy.
The film was developed over the course of 2 years by producer Rick Berman, screenwriter John Logan, and Data actor Brett Spiner. Oh, that makes sense. That's why Data has such a huge role in this film.
Yes, but also he does... I love this because my opening question to you once we get into it is going to be how much Star Trek have you actually consumed? Because I'm wagering none.
Very little, my friend.
Yes.
I watched most of the first season of the original Star Trek a few years ago and enjoyed it. I had fun. It came on Netflix, so I decided let's watch the first season of Star Trek, and enjoyed it quite a bit, but didn't persevere to the remaining, I think there's 68 episodes or something like that.
There's 3 seasons of the original series, and then there's 7 for the next 3 series after that.
Right. Yeah, so I didn't watch any of those. I did used to catch Voyager when I was a kid.
I'm making my way through Voyager as we speak.
So I used to watch that. In terms of the movies, I have seen the motion picture, directed by Robert Wise. I've seen Wrath of Khan in pieces on TV, never at the cinema. And I've seen the Abrams Trek, and I think that's it.
That's so fascinating. I figured that was the case, and I know that, for example, I remember listening to OGT very early on, and I was so fascinated when you would do things like, let's watch Breaking Dawn Part 2, having never seen any of the Twilights before that. I
will still confidently insist that that's the best one, having seen none of the others.
Oh, it's so great. So I was I'm so intrigued to see how you approach this film, especially as one that kind of stands on its own, but also rewards and adheres to a lot of knowledge that it assumes people have over what at that point, like 20 years worth.
Is Data typically like the second character, like second build in the TV show or movies?
Quite often Data is utilized to progress storylines because his whole progress throughout the series is an android that is attempting to be human or wants to be more than he was. So the themes that they play on during Nemesis are absolutely a continuation of the entirety of the series.
Okay, so he's like early Chryson. I have seen all of Red Dwarf.
I haven't seen any of Red Dwarf.
Ooh, okay. We'll need to do a cultural exchange program at some point. The Red Dwarf movies are not worth in any way experiencing, I'm afraid.
I didn't know there was.
The first 6 seasons of Red Dwarf will do you fine. Anyway, let's try and get on surer ground, because screenwriter John Logan seems to be a newcomer to Star Trek. He was a playwright for many years before writing Oliver Stone's Any Given Sunday and then getting an Oscar nomination for Gladiator.
He also wrote Skyfall, didn't he? Or at least
Well,
partially.
after this, he would go on to write The Last Samurai, The Aviator, Sweeney Todd, Rango, Hugo, Skyfall, Spectre, Alien Covenant, and They, Them, a poorly received slasher film set in a gay conversion camp. Yikes.
That is a wide variety of films of different quality.
It is, and he is getting more niche. Maybe he lacks the deft hand to deal with really controversial subject matter. Anyway, his next film is Michael, a Michael Jackson biopic.
What? Who's Michael? Do we know?
Michael Jackson, my friend.
No, I mean, who's playing Michael?
Oh, God, I have no idea.
Eddie
I don't know
Redmayne?
what the tone of that is going to be like. God, I mean, it's coming out this year, apparently. Oh, God, there's posters and images. Oh, wow.
If they play it the same way that Daniel Radcliffe did in the Weird Al biopic, I'm all on board.
This movie is going to be an absolute shit show, I'm calling it right now. It's directed by Antoine Fuqua of Training Day fame, director of Training Day, and amongst others, and he's being played. So the whole time I was like, is this going to be a warts and all thing? Because it's going to be really difficult to tell this story if you don't address some of the shit. It's got Jafar Jackson, Jermaine Jackson's kid, playing Michael Jackson.
Excuse me? They have a Jackson playing a Jackson? Amazing.
And they is it produced by? I can't see any Jacksons in the produced by, but my guess is this is going to be an absolute love letter, and it's going to skirt over all of the shit.
Oh, you think they're going to Elvis it a little bit?
Yep, I think they're going to Elvis it. I don't think this is going to be Priscilla. Somebody needs to make the Priscilla movie to this movie, I think.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm all on board.
Oh, man. It's going to be a hell of a thing.
It's a damn shame that OGT is going to be gone by that time.
We'll make a special... the Patreon is going to continue, so we'll make a special Patreon
A Michael
episode.
special.
A Michael special of the Patreon. My God. Producers briefly suggested adding Spock to this story, but decided that it would be too distracting and unnecessary.
Yes.
Let's wait until we're really desperate before resorting to bringing Spock back.
Yeah, 7 years later.
Yeah. Stuart Baird is brought in to direct because of his lack of familiarity with the Star Trek world, in the belief that he would bring fresh blood to proceedings. He previously, fabulously, edited a bunch of Ken Russell and Richard Donner films in the 70s and 80s, before directing Executive Decision and U.S. Marshals, beloved classics of their genres.
Which is so fascinating as well, because those are the only 3 films that he did entirely. He's primarily an editor, and the last film he did was Nemesis. Otherwise, he did the fascinating sequel to Academy Award-winning Fugitive,
Oh, yeah. Yes, absolutely. A movie that repeated a lot of the beats of The Fugitive and is largely unmemorable. To be honest, though, the only bit of executive decision people remember is the fact that Steven Seagal gets bumped off halfway through and hated it and was really angry about it. That's literally the only thing about that movie people remember.
Yeah, got to take Seagal down a peg.
Yeah, you got to do that at least once. He did that at least. He has that to his credit.
A public service.
Critics felt that if the filmmakers had lived their lives, they would understand their responsibility to the movie-going public. That was a bit contrived. Never mind. Roger Ebert.
Hello.
Roger Ebert at the Chicago Sun-Times said, "I'm smiling like a good sport and trying to get with the dialogue, and gradually it occurs to me that Star Trek is over for me. I've been looking at these stories for half a lifetime, and let's face it, they're out of gas." Kind of poignant, because his reviews for the Abrams ones were very much, they're just action movies now. It's not really the Star Trek I grew up with. So you do have the kind of gradual fading away of a Star Trek fan there.
Which, yeah, that is...
a melancholy acceptance that the things couldn't go on the way they were before, but also the way forward isn't particularly bright.
And that's such a interesting analysis of Star Trek, especially when you head to things like Enterprise, as in the TV show, that had Scott Bakula involved and such, where they've always experimented with seeing how can we slightly change the format. In Deep Space Nine, how do we, instead of it being going far and wide and exploring space, what if we seclude it on a space station? For Enterprise, it's what if we look at the early point of the Federation? For Nemesis, it's what if we become influenced by Star Wars a little bit and attempt a little bit of action as well, which we'll get into that. But I've always thought that Star Trek is interesting when it pushes the bounds of what it's capable of exploring.
That is interesting, because I watched a video earlier today on the top 10 controversies within the Star Trek fandom, and one of them was, I think, is it Deep Space Nine that introduces essentially the idea of a space CIA or something like that, and it talked about how, Secret Service in space, and it basically pointed out that Gene Roddenberry's vision was that there would be no interpersonal conflict between the members of the crew, that they would be absolutely a functional unit and that conflict would come from outside, which is an interesting idea. But really, a lot of the writers just said this makes it really hard to write.
Yes, and Deep Space
Nine... you
can't
have them arguing.
And Deep Space Nine very much is something that has no middle ground. I found that I haven't personally watched Deep Space Nine or enough of it, but I know everyone either viscerally loathes it or absolutely adores it. It's their favorite series. So, and that's what I think Trek should do as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, ultimately, if these things are going to live on, they have to live on beyond... They do have to live on beyond the creator, but I do think it's interesting to return to the original vision and ask yourself, is there still merit here? And frankly, the idea of a utopian story set within a future where people have fully evolved past their differences, evolved past, any kind of... what do you call it, surface level kind of identity differences between them, and have actually found effective ways of working together, is an interesting one. And it does occur to me that ultimately maybe these writers are kind of arguing in favor of being able to write more generic storylines in terms of, he's sleeping with him and he's, mad at him. But hey, I haven't seen a lot of the non-Roddenberry Star Trek, so I can't really comment. But
also, it's rich coming from Roddenberry because, man, there are some fucking wild episodes that occur in even Next Generation. It just gets bonkers, and I applaud them for it.
Love that. Well, look. Public, meanwhile... Oh, I didn't write something for this. Public, meanwhile, wanted their own evil clones. I don't know.
Yep.
Brando
also wanted to engage.
They also wanted to make it so. But Brando647 over on IMDb said, "It's a shame the final adventure was no more than a flashy action film." Again, captures... I like flashy, though. Enjoy that.
Flashy?
This is a flashy action film. By their standards, it's very flashy.
Gotta have something.
A bunch of three-men. I've been trying to find out who a lot of them are. I don't think they're very interesting until the last three. I think you got a couple of stunt performers. Chris Palermo was in Next, and That's My Boy. Did stunts here. Greg Bronson was in Inspector Gadget. The One, Gone in 60 Seconds in this, so I imagine also stunts. Marty Mortillis was in Land of the Lost, which we watched an epic 10 minutes of.
That's right.
And Red One. So, good for him. Okay, more interestingly, Whoopi Goldberg is a three-man after The Descendants 2, which I do not remember, and Eddie. her basketball movie that I do actually remember quite fondly.
Descendants 2, she's in that, as in the Disney musical series?
Yeah, apparently.
Great. Good on her.
I imagine she has a similar role to her role in this.
You're hanging out with LeVar Burton.
A bit more shamefully, Patrick Stewart is a 3-man after David Lynch's Dune. No fault there, but also the Emoji Movie, where he played the poop.
The poop emoji.
The poop emoji. Speaking of, Brent Spiner is a 3-man after superhero movie. Yikes. Actually, that was the better of the two, if I remember correctly, because it had some of the actual Zucker Abrams people involved. But then also Independence Day Resurgence, where he plays an embarrassment.
Oh, free to a man, free in the bush, free, yo. Films are shit, mate.
Oh, I have a lot of time for Brent Spiner as well, because he's the only person that I've asked an interview question to out of the Star Trek universe. He came down to Adelaide and he had a little Q&A, and I asked him my favorite double-parter question to ask anyone, which is A, what is your least favorite film genre? And B, what is your favorite film within that genre?
Oh, I like that. What did he answer?
If I remember correctly, he said sports movies, and then his answer was Friday Night Lights.
Oh, good stuff. Oh my god, I just saw one of the best sports movies I've ever seen in my life. It was, I actually I never seek out sports movies, but almost always when I'm watching them, they have such inherent stakes that I'm almost always able to get on board. But I saw Personal Best, the 1981 American movie about two girls trying to qualify for the Olympic team, and Jesus Christ, Luca Guadagnino must have seen that and taken notes, because that movie is challenges. And it's just
incredible. I was hoping you were going to say, what is it, Field of Dreams?
Oh, I haven't seen Field of Dreams.
Neither have I, but I know it's baseball with ghosts.
Well, this is the pentathlon with lesbians, so I highly recommend it.
Love that film.
Star Trek Nemesis has 38% on Rotten Tomatoes, 51% on Metacritic, and 6.4 on IMDb, and made only $67.3 million on a $60 million budget, necessitating a 7-year pause followed by a reboot. The film may have been disadvantaged by its release date a mere month after Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, a few weeks after Die Another Day, and just 1 week before Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers.
Oh, shit!
So
damn!
They were really splitting the nerd dollar there.
Which was doing very strongly at that time, the nerd dollar.
It was a powerful time for nerds.
Now we're into nerd crypto.
Well, quite. So, Sean, you Riemann outcast.
Oh.
Why do you have a shiny head?
Look, I'm getting there. I actually am. Receding hairline for Sean. For myself, I was fascinated because I've started making my way. So, okay, just to backtrack a little bit, I was first introduced to Star Trek, weirdly enough, with 2009 Star Trek, the J.J. Abrams.
Okay.
That was my first introduction to it. Saw it in the cinema, was like, oh, maybe I should finally watch Star Trek. And then I went back, watched one season of the original series, didn't really fuck with it. And then years later, I went and watched Next Gen, fell in love with it.
Right.
Finally got all the way through that. I've started to watch Voyager, but then realized I should start watching the films, watching the Next Gen films in particular. And I knew that Nemesis was always pegged as being this abomination, this atrocious film. And I was thinking, I have seen some bad Star Trek films. Let's see what this one's like. And when I watched it months before asking you about it, I had to bring it to the table because I need to put my cards on the table. I love this film. I think it's genuinely a good film. I think it's genuinely a great Star Trek film. And I am baffled that this is what killed the film franchise for another 7 years, especially because a lot of what seems to be considered failures of Nemesis was adopted into Star Trek 09 anyway. So, yeah, it fascinated me. And speaking to what you're talking about with the box office failure and what was coming out at the time, that does make a little bit more sense. But I'm also just fascinated about how this didn't even divide it unified Star Trek fans in a hatred for the film, and I really wanted to delve into it and chat with you about it.
I have been seeing that there has been a narrative out there, sort of against the director, and I think some of the cast have maybe played into this as well. There's this sense that the director didn't really know Star Trek, didn't appreciate it, and I think once that narrative starts to build, it can be really difficult to sort of dissuade that kind of mythology. And yes, movies I love have come afoul of that particular fan ire as well, so, you know, it can be very frustrating. Yes. But yeah, no, it's interesting. Let's we'll get into that. We'll discuss all of that. But first of all, what happens in Star Trek Nemesis?
Whoa. I don't know if that's even a sound in it, but yep.
Whoa. I'm pretty sure at some point Jerry Goldsmith's score goes. Whoa.
Bah. It's just him with a mic right up close.
As well as every other fucking sound he could think to make in that studio. Frankly, made it into this score. It's a wonderful Jerry Goldsmith. His penultimate score, I believe. So, a wonderful sign-off. And he bookended the kind of first cycle of movies because he did the score for Star Trek The Motion Picture.
Amazing! God, we love collaborative composers that come back again and again.
Yeah. But yes, we start with a 90s-style sci-fi original movie opening credit sequence.
Yes. I love the almost alien-esque blending and dripping of the text that would eventually come out. And I was like, oh yeah, this is 2002. Let's do it.
Some of the letters are backwards. It's crazy. And we cut to the planet Romulus. Did Earth astronomers name these planets Romulus and Remus, and so the alien architects living on it were just like, all right, ancient Rome then?
Yeah, look, I have no doubt that there is an answer to your joke. Like
I'm sure there are so many Reddit threads about it.
I don't know.
Actually, the Romans were inspired by... I'm
shut up.
I'm getting out of here now. Oh yeah, I do write the note. I wonder how long it will take for me to feel lost. Oh, here we are. Because
Good. That was my first thought.
Yeah.
I was like, how's Paul doing here?
Senators, consider the opportunities for the Empire. At last, the destinies of the planets Romulus and Remus will be united. Shinzon of Remus is offering us a chance to make ourselves stronger than ever before. It would be madness to reject it. I beg you not to let prejudice or politics interfere with this alliance. By joining Shinzon's forces with ours, not even the Federation will be able to stand in our way.
That's enough!
So there's a Romulan Empire.
Yes, a Romulan is a big bad in the TV series.
Yes,
that come back
related
quite
to the
a bit.
Vulcans, I believe.
Yes, they're an offshoot, kind of a what would you call it? Like an offshoot, basically, from years past.
Less elves and Uruk-hai, more like wood elves and high elves.
That's actually a great way of explaining it. Then there's the Romulus and the Remusans, or however they say
Remans, I think is
the
their
Remans.
demonym.
Yes.
Yeah, and they are actually an Uruk-hai kind of offshoot. They are kind of fucked up Count Orlok looking motherfuckers.
Offshoots of the offshoots.
Yeah. And they're a sort of underclass, very powerful warriors. But anyway, the Romulans want peace with the Federation. And they're just discussing whether or not how best to do that. When suddenly some lady decides to murder them all.
Do they want peace, or are they just willing to hear out? Because the Romulans have always been very standoffish, and there's a tenuous truce between the two. They've divided Romulan space and Federation space, and that's what's kind of tied into it a bit here. But it's more like, I think... the Romulan that has come out, because there's Reman sympathizes with the two Romulans that are coming and saying, we should actually band together with them. And then the Romulans are like, well, no.
Yeah, from a narrative perspective, I guess you want to show peace almost being at hand, then subverted by this coup which occurs. Because essentially, yes, almost all of the sort of Romulan high command is assassinated. And we cut to the most terrifying introduction to a best man speech I've ever heard.
Duty. A starship captain's life is filled with solemn duty. I have commanded men in battle. I have negotiated peace treaties between implacable enemies. I have represented the Federation in first contact with 27 alien species, but none of this compares with my solemn duty today as best man.
I love the dad-like energy that Patrick Stewart has here, which is simultaneously foreboding as fuck and also loving dad energy.
Yeah, I love that because they fake you out, basically, making you think he's doing something else, delivering a speech or, some sort of confrontational thing, and then it's a reveal gag. Surprise, actually, he's delivering a best man speech, but it's such a portentous, frightening introduction to a best man speech if that's what he's doing.
Everyone's like, oh, that Picard, he's a bit crazy.
He's a Picard, if you know what I mean. So, it's a science fiction wedding because the symbols are green in the band. And it is Riker and Counselor Troy.
Good job. Sorry, I just genuinely, I applaud. If you get everyone's name, I'm going to be so happy.
Here's the thing. I've never actually watched an entire episode of The Next Generation. That's a lie. My boss showed me one. He, on our last day of work one day, just before Christmas, he wanted to watch an episode of The Next Generation, so I Googled what is generally considered to be the best one, and we watched it together. I can't remember anything about it now, but that's the only time
was this
I've
at a
watched
work
an
event?
No, it was literally, the office was empty, it was me and my boss, everyone else had left, it was the last day before Christmas, so we were just like, screw it, let's just throw on an episode of Star Trek.
That's actually incredible. Christmas Eve Trek.
Yeah, it was very nice.
Better than my Christmas Eve Psycho watching that I did.
Oh, love that. That's such a good vibe. What was that with your boss, or was that just
No, that was
solo?
with Chris, actually. We double billed Psycho with American Psycho and watched it on Christmas Eve.
Love that. It's a cool Psycho double.
I hadn't seen either of them. It's great.
I assume it was the original Psycho, not Gus Van Sant's remake.
Yes. No. Only original in this household.
So yeah, they're getting married, and a lot of characters do cameos. Meanwhile, in space, there's the Enterprise, and oh wow, it is staggering that the 2009 reboot is only 7 years away, visual effects wise.
Yeah, look, here's my question. Are you impressed or are you offended by the CGI in this film?
I'm charmed, Sean.
So am I.
I'm charmed by the CGI in this film.
I thought it wasn't bad.
Yeah, the 2009 reboot is only 7 years away and only costs 3 times as much.
Jesus.
Yeah, I know. So, yeah, they're on their way. They've done part of, in the most Futurama-ass part of this movie, they have done one half of the wedding ceremony and are now heading off to a planet. What is the planet? Kif's homeworld? It really feels like, in my head, that's where they're going.
Not Mars. Not Mars. That's
No, Amy's from Mars.
That's Amy's from Mars. What is Kif's home planet? But
I don't know, but yeah, he's going there to meet with that crazy woman who lives in the swamp who does all the jobs there.
I'm not actually going anywhere because I live here.
You don't have to talk to me. That's where they're going in my head, because they're going there to perform the other half of the ceremony, which is apparently performed completely naked.
Yes, so, that is the Betazoid way.
On the way, they find a weird energy reading from an oversaturated planet, so they go and land.
Yeah, the oversaturated gold planet, which gave me Pitch Black vibes, or I think it's Pitch Black. Yeah, it just...
Yeah, absolutely. The first Riddick adventure.
That's right.
Yeah, but there's a weird energy reading. But, Dad, this is boring. I wish I was seeing Equilibrium next door. Whoa, a 6 space car! Oh, it's like the Mako from Mass Effect, that universally beloved aspect of that franchise.
See, now, I don't know if I'm a contrarian once again. I loved using the Mako. I had such fun. The joy that I felt using the Mako was the pure, unadulterated joy that Picard clearly had driving a buggy around and laughing like a goddamn schoolchild.
He was pretty psyched to be in that little car.
Also, I love how psyched he was to just be like, well... Commander Riker, I know you have a honeymoon, but fuck you, we're doing another mission. Let's go.
We're doing my thing.
Let's go.
So they find a dismembered robot on the planet, which looks an awful lot like Brett Spiner in what we're calling a franchise extender.
Yes, it's also a Brent Spiner extender because it allows him finally to not play a robot. That's my favorite trope, is when they go, we've given you a one-note character, every now and then we'll throw you a bone and give you a second character.
But then, oh no, who are these space dudes? Let's have a totally involving and necessary cool laser fight. Hey, did anyone involved in this end up making Ad Astra? I feel like the people who saw Ad Astra might have seen this.
Bit of Mad Max, bit of Ad Astra.
Bit of Mad Max. But yeah, they get back to the ship, and oh my god, a Voyager cameo.
Yes! I completely forgot.
Check it out on TV, kids, last year when it ended.
Oh yeah, that's right. We're throwing Kate Mulgrew a little bit more work.
we got an extra week on her. We're not putting that to waste. Apparently they wanted 7 of 9, but there was just like... Apparently the actor who plays 7 of 9 was just like, but she doesn't know anyone on that ship.
No.
That wouldn't have...
Sorry, it's not what my character would do.
So instead, they pitched to her the idea she could have cameoed at the wedding, and she was like, that makes even less sense.
I wouldn't do that. Leave me alone.
7 of 9 met the Next Gen crew on a crazy summer holiday, and they all bonded and became friends over the summer. Don't worry about it. She's here now.
They played volleyball together.
You're going to have to wait for Picard for any of that to happen. I know all of this. Why do I know all of this?
How do you know all of this?
I don't know. It's so ubiquitous and so heavily online that I just know it.
I'm looking forward to hearing more Star Trek lore from you.
That I've inexplicably picked up from Family Guy. Anyway, they order them to go to Romulus, where a kooky new leader has taken over the Empire and wants peace. Shinzon. Meanwhile, fuck a lot's happening. They decide to give the new robot all of Data's memories in order to make him more like him.
Yes.
And then a scary ship shows up called the Scimitar. There's so much going on. It sounds very scary. I like that. And Picard meets with Shinzon, and he's bald. Oh, he must be a clone of me.
Yeah, I love the immediate realization of, wait a minute, because he hasn't even come into the light. He's seemingly, they're all going, wait a minute, I know the shape of that head. I've seen it before.
He's really creepy, just like you were in the early seasons. What?
Look at those shoulder pads.
Just like you used to wear. That kind of thing's genetic.
I can feel everything you feel. In fact, I feel exactly what you feel. Don't I, Jean-Luc? Come to dinner tomorrow on Romulus. Just the two of us. Or should I say, just the one of us.
You may scan me without subterfuge, Mr. Data, because your scanner is really loud and it's obvious that's what you're doing.
Yeah, otherwise, what is that in your hand? Nothing?
I think it was an electric razor that they've repurposed. Well,
is it a gun? Oh, that's fine.
Shinzon asks if he can touch Councillor Troy's hair, a line that even Tom Hardy would struggle to use successfully. I mean, maybe. I'd let him.
I would too. Also, I in my head canon is just, I wish I had hair. Can I touch yours? And if she says no, he steps one step to the right, goes, Riker, can I touch your hair?
I want to touch somebody's hair. Picard's cringing because he remembers when he used to try and use these lines. Anyway, yeah, so basically this guy's now taken over the Romulan Empire and he wants peace, he says. And so everybody's very excited about that. Meanwhile, the people who assassinated that entire Senate for him are getting upset because suddenly he's proven to be a little unpredictable. The guy who murdered all of his predecessors.
The guy who set a coup and took over 2 empires. Like, you know what? Maybe we should have thought this through a bit. What's going on?
For a bald guy with massive shoulder pads, you've proven really unprofessional.
Look, I know that we kept you in an interrogation planet for the better part of your entire childhood. We reckon you're fine with us now. You're cool.
You've got our best interests at heart, and we are sure of it. They find out a bit about his backstory. It turns out that he was supposed to be a sneaky replacement for Picard from the ancient Book of War, Naked Gun 2.5.
There you go. There's another series I haven't watched.
Oh, God. It's so good. So yeah, he relays his backstory. He was sent to a pit to die, and that he didn't see the light again. Oh, that was it. Yeah, he was sent to an evil prison planet and down into a pit where he was, sent there to die, and it was all darkness because it's hidden by the other planet. And he didn't see the light again until he was a grown man, and by then it was nothing to him but blinding.
Yes, it's so poetic. I fucking love it.
It's
Tom
very
Hardy
baby.
Can say anything.
Oh, he does ask him, have the Picards always been warriors? Oh, no, and I wouldn't consider myself a warrior, more an explorer. Have they always been explorers? No, mostly thespians.
Yeah. I was also hoping he would completely misread. Have we always been warriors? No, we don't concern ourselves with anything. No, I mean what WAR, not WOR. Oh, right.
Engage. What? Sorry, I say that now and then when I'm nervous.
Oh, so do I. We must be clones.
So yeah, Bane promises he's not evil. He seems like a nice enough guy, so let's go along with it. But, you know, in spite of his promise, the big ship he's got is radiating radiation, but the bad kind of radiation. Someone's hacking their computers for unknown reasons, and he's Nosferatuing Counselor Troy. So, might not be the best guy. In order to do that, he requires his best mate to help him do it. Dude, is it gay if you use your mate's psychic abilities to invade a girl's dreams together?
Not if it's Ron Perlman doing it. Which I didn't realize was Ron Perlman until 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, I had an issue. I was reading up on the production history of it, and it said, Hardy and Perlman struck up a friendship. And I was like, Perlman? You haven't said Perlman already. You know, usually you use both names the first instance of using someone's name, but you haven't done that. Who's Perlman? Rhea Perlman? Is Rhea Perlman from Cheers in this movie?
Norm!
Shinzo! Oh, God. So... She does go to Picard and says, I'd really like to not be mind assaulted again. Stay here.
No, because if it happens again, we want to see it.
Yeah, it looks cool. I want to see that. They kidnap Brett Spiner's other role and turn him evil. Oh, no! Oh, shit. This is like C-3PO with the red eyes.
Oh, no.
Utterly terrifying. And
red eyes and the red arm.
Then they kidnap Picard, and Hardy goes a bit foolisy in his performance, and basically he wants his blood because he's got a Blade Runner replicant thing going on, so he's going to need some of that blood.
Deteriorating condition unless he gets a procedure done that'll accelerate his genetics by 30 years.
Ew. Which he did. They do introduce that idea that he's rapidly aging, and I do just think maybe by the end of the movie he's just going to be Patrick Stewart playing both roles.
Gets double the fee.
Double the fee. It's a brilliant plan of mine.
Yes. I'm glad I wrote it.
Soon all of these characters will be me in different roles.
Oh my goodness. Can we John Malkovich this movie?
AI will help us do this. So they do some Star Wars stuff to sneak off of the ship. I write that when they're pretending to be sort of prisoner and jailer, but it doesn't stop being true for the rest of the sequence.
Yes.
They Star Wars their way out of that ship.
It's yeah. The Phantom Menace influence is like rampant in the best possible way.
The best possible interpretation of that. There's no Jar Jar equivalent here, folks. Yeah. Hardy sees them flying away on his screen. Impossible.
What? Get them back. I can't. Shit.
Shit. What do all these buttons do? So, the Romulan politicians back home are losing patience, though. At the point when they end a Skype call with him, they're like, what's wrong with his face? A question that so many Republicans are being forced to ask of their executives these days.
With no better an answer. Well, he's only got a couple of years to live, so that's why.
Oh, God, we hope. Anyway, the Enterprise prepares to fight off Shinzon, and they have a big fight. I don't have much to say about it. They have a big fight. They have a hologram chat. My notes get a little sparse. But then the Romulans show up and they've turned on Shinzon because of how fucked up he is.
He's just taking a little bit more time. They're like, we're impatient. Okay, let's switch sides.
Yeah, we really want this guy dead now. We're worried that we don't have the best of futures in store with him. Turned out massively insulting the people who helped you overthrow the planet wasn't the best of moves.
Yeah, hey guys, I think we made a mistake.
But that's his problem with authority, just like Picard's.
Ugh.
Oh, God. Anyway, we've nearly destroyed them. Oh, hey, Troy. Troy. Oh, that's it. Yeah, this is Tom Hardy. Ron Perlman's just like, well, we've nearly destroyed them. Oh, Troy is online if you want to sext. Oh, God, yeah. So they give away their location.
Yes. Yeah. So I was like, oh, yeah, that thing that I can do to her, I should probably let you know. She can probably do it back to me as well. It'll probably never come up, though.
It very nearly didn't.
Yeah.
So they have a fight, and they board the ship and have a laser battle. I do at some point struggle to figure out which ship they're on.
Really?
Points.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a couple of points there where I'm like, have they boarded them or have they boarded them?
Both.
Love that. Because, Worf does a... yes, I remember this. He does a mighty chuck himself onto the floor in order to shoot a couple of guys, whilst Riker falls down a garbage hole in order to have his contract-mandated fist fight with a dragon character.
Yes, Ron Perlman and Jonathan Frakes fight it out on the Enterprise, whereas Data, Tom Hardy, and Picard are on the Scimitar.
Oh, God, a ship they already escaped from earlier.
Yes.
But yes, then Picard comes up with a cunning plan. Let's just ram the prick, and it works great.
Yeah, more ships need to do that.
Guys, let's just figure out whose ship is built better.
Yeah.
Let's just
if it's yours, ram it.
Oh yeah, Riker is Riker kills Ron Perlman, and at that stage Picard is like, ready the auto-destruct sequence. It's offline. Dude, did you just try and kill all of us? I'm just prepping. Couldn't you accomplish the same thing by just shooting yourself in the head? No, engage. Yeah.
Also, the fact that he had a plan after the self-destruct thing was like, oh, that didn't work? Okay, I actually have another plan, so maybe let's do that.
It's kind of stupid, though. I'm not sure it's going to work. What the fuck is wrong with you? Anyway, they unleash some of that radiation that really dries out the skin. You know, no amount of Nivea is going to save you from this one, so it's looking pretty bad for the Enterprise. Data hilariously flies between ships. I don't want to hear any more guff about Leia Mary Poppins in The Last Jedi. This is
projectile Data is so hilarious.
This is very funny. There's a standoff on the bridge of the good ship Bastard Sword, and Picard ends up stabbing him with a big pole.
Big soul.
The big soul. He stabs him with the big pole. Oh, the hubris. Roddenberry would be so proud. Data very abruptly sacrifices himself. I don't fully watch the sequence. I'm kind of kept taking a note of the previous thing. And when I look back up, Data has decided that he's going to die in the world and the ship's going to explode.
Yeah, he used his, if you missed it, he used the little, the mini transporter to bring Picard back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But he didn't have two of those, so.
No.
Yeah.
It's a prototype.
It's a prototype. That happens. And the ship explodes. And that's the end
Data
of that.
dies.
Captain, we're being hailed. Why are you always surprised by that? People call us all the time. We're very popular.
He's either surprised or he's just very, very excited to be able to say something in the film.
I have a line. Oh, they only want to pay me for one line, so they're just going to use my audio of sounding vaguely surprised that we're being hailed each time it happens.
Captain, I can talk.
Well, anyway, so yeah, now there's going to be peace discussions and it's all good. Brett Spiner may have given himself a massive role in the film, but, you know, he did kill himself off, so maybe the next movie there will be the ability to focus on one of the other characters. Oh yeah, there's another one of him. And oh yeah, there's no more movies. Oh well, the end.
Oh. Yeah, he Harrison Forded himself in the end.
Almost, except he downloaded all his memories into another Harrison Ford.
Into Shia LaBeouf.
Oh god. So yeah, that's Star Trek Nemesis. So yes, let's get back to thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd be intrigued to hear your thoughts first, based on as being like a first proper foray into a full piece of media about Star Trek, like a full film.
Well, as I say, I watched some of the original series. I would like to see more of Next Generation because I am told that it's, you know, a very good series, and I do like Picard a lot and the cast. Well, to be honest, I like Patrick Stewart a lot. The rest of the cast, and I'm sure I'll get more out of it if I watch the TV show, I don't get a lot out of the rest of the crew in any of the stuff that I've seen and the clips and things that I've seen. They don't seem to have as much of a personality as the original crew, and I'd be curious to have that reversed.
Yeah, it is a big shame. Obviously, over 7 seasons worth of Next Gen, and they have the ability to throw a lot of shit at the wall, and that means a lot of character-centric episodes. There's a bunch of running jokes that the fans have, like LaForge, who's the head of engineering, who was talking with Whoopi Goldberg. Yeah, LeVar Burton. He basically wants to fuck the ship.
Right, okay.
He's in love with the ship. Michael Dorn, as in Chief of Security Worf, he always will give out an opening suggestion of what they should do, and every single fucking time, Patrick Stewart shuts him down. No. Yeah. Belay that order. But yeah, every character generally gets things to shine, things that allows them to shine both as an in-character performer and the fans watching them from an outside meta perspective. But the problem with this film is that it doesn't, and I think almost rightfully so, I'm happy that they didn't try to find some sort of character development for every single member of the crew, because that might dilute the message. But I'm also simultaneously a little bit. It's a shame that that's the send off that a lot of them had until I guess Picard came out. But yeah, take your point.
Yeah, it's character development is one thing, but then there's just like performing the character. Like from all I've seen of Star Trek: The Next Generation, the only character trait I'm aware of Riker's is that he has a fucked up way of sitting in a chair.
The Riker sit.
That's the main thing I sort of know about him. And I do just wonder if the sort of, but I'm sure they are. I'm sure the characters are there in a much more nuanced way.
Yes.
But yeah, sometimes you have a character where them slipping into the role just feels like, just really natural, and they just are able to do it just like that. And yeah, I would have liked more of a sense of who the crew kind of were in these in this film. But I guess that for many, you just kind of take that for granted because, people are familiar with all of this stuff. So just having them in the background saying a line now and then feels suitable.
Yeah, you've got over a decade worth of these. In general,
it's very interesting. It feels like an episode of the show eked out with a lot of action. And there are some interesting ideas within it. The idea of the sort of the self, and does your experiences make you, and what is the difference between, I was actually reading, there was apparently a very interesting episode of Voyager in which two of the crew members get into a transporter and end up being merged together into a new being. And they find a way quite quickly to separate them out back into their original selves, but doing so will effectively kill this new being who has come into existence as a result of both sets of memories and experiences.
I know the episode you're talking about. I haven't actually seen it. It's a very well-known, I think, controversial episode of Voyager, and that a lot of people, I don't think, liked it, but I'm aware of it.
Right. So that kind of like dilemma is really interesting. In this, it is a fairly familiar principle, the idea of a clone, the idea of, this kind of thing. I have watched a fair few of the deleted scenes, or at least a few, because apparently the original cut was 2 hours and 40 minutes long, so they had to cut like an hour worth of stuff. That's like
20 minutes worth of stuff, yeah.
Well, yeah, and so they cut a lot of stuff out, mostly character stuff. And it's kind of a shame. There's a lovely scene between Picard and Data after the wedding that develops some of the themes of the film a little better and sort of introduces some of the conflict that's going to be coming up between him and Shinzon. But these things need to happen. But there's a scene.
Will Wheaton gets a more extended cameo as well. He gets to actually be like, "Hey, this is where I've been the whole time."
Yeah, he can cut that. But but there's also a scene featuring Shinzon before his reveal to the Enterprise crew. And the director explains that this was an obvious lift because it robs the reveal sequence, which, when Shinzon first gets revealed, he's in the shadows and he's emerging, and it's kind of like Nosferatu, the new one. They spends a lot of time with him before you actually see him.
Yes.
And he said, well, having him on screen would have, robbed the scene of that tension. And it's like, yeah, that occurred to you in the edit, not as you were shooting the film. And it bespeaks to me the director maybe wasn't the best. It does bespeak a lack of intentionality behind some of the sequences, and a sense that they really did just shoot the script like a TV director might. And maybe they tried to bring as much ingenuity as they could to each scene as they shot it, but it for me lacked a very coherent sense of visual identity.
And that is very strange as well, because Stuart Baird is primarily an editor. He wasn't the editor on this film, but his career has been, the majority of his career has been editing. He has, over 20, 30 credits to his name, from Die Hard to Skyfall to everything, and only 3 directorial credits. So I am intrigued to know, did you shoot that scene knowing that you weren't going to have it, and then shot the reveal of Shinzon knowing that that's where you were going to introduce him? I don't know.
It's curious, but yeah, it's an unusual thing to have there, but to have done. Nevertheless, I enjoyed the movie well enough. I enjoyed parts of it more than others. The entire sort of final battle, which takes up about 30 minutes or so, I felt that the movie had gotten away from me, because the bits I was enjoying most were the sort of conversations between Picard and his clone, and when the crew are sort of talking about the implications of what's happened and how, best they might respond to it, that sort of thing. But I understand that the logistics of a movie means that you need to do, more than that. You can't just have that in a film. But I'm not sure it arrived at a happy medium in which the kind of science and scenario were informing the action. Essentially, there's just kind of a game of two halves here. A half that feels like a Star Trek episode, and then a half where they just have a big fight.
Yes, it is. It is quite fascinating to see what almost looks like the blending or the transition between the Star Trek movies and series of old and what would then become the J.J. Abrams film. Is that it almost seems like, were they trying to satiate a producer's demand, or was that the director's influence of going, no, we need to have the action sequences here to really grab an audience? Yet Star Trek is at its most palatable and poignant and digestible when it is just the crew sitting around a long table trying to discuss exactly what they need to do and what are the ramifications and implications of that.
And you can do that. I do quite like the 2009 first Star Trek film.
Me too.
I wasn't a big fan of Into Darkness, and I do think that what Abrams and screenwriters achieve with the 2009 Trek is that they're able to find a way to make the characters felt through the action. They do those kind of responses and deciding what to do on the fly in the moment based on their character types, where Spock will take a rational decision, Kirk will take a impulsive one, and you'll see that sort of play out through the action. In this, there is a bit of a thing where once the action starts, you just don't feel those characters anymore. Having not seen any of Next Generation, I really couldn't tell you anything about what Geordi is like, or what because you've got the big Klingon character, what's his name, Worf.
Yes.
Again, I don't get much of a sense of what he's like just from this film alone. And Riker is very early, sort of in the fight sequence, separated out to have this fist fight with Ron Perlman, and then that's kind of it. He's just away from the crew and out of the conflict for the length of that fight.
It's a film of three people. It's very much the story of Picard, Data, and Shinzon, and those are the three predominant players. You have a little bit more with Deanna Troi and Jonathan Frakes front-loaded in the beginning of the film, and then a little bit at the very end, and a little bit with B4 as well. But they're obviously trying to be very streamlined with their themes and who they want to place their focus on. And unfortunately, that comes at the detriment of, unless you are familiar with the series, you're not going to get much of an idea of who those other characters are, so you're not going to develop an emotional attachment to them necessarily. But yeah, it's that catch-22 of I appreciate the streamlined focus for the film, but I would have loved to have seen a better use of your Gates McFadden, your LeVar Burton, your Michael Dorn.
Just a little chance for the characters to shine through a bit more. They don't even need necessarily more plot stuff. It's just when you have the scene where everybody talks about where everyone talks about what to do, there should just be more of a sense of everybody's different approaches and where everybody comes. Instead, it felt very expositional and a bit perfunctory. But
yes.
So perfunctory is sometimes, at its worst, that's what came across, is the idea of, okay, I'm not quite sure why this... And also, it is cursed with the legacy of being the final original kind of Trek film in this timeline when it didn't know that's what it was going to be. So that is unfortunate, because ultimately, if you did know that this was going to be the final film in this particular franchise, you'd probably do some things differently. It has the feeling of a series finale that doesn't know it's a series finale kind of thing. Except, of course, Picard has stepped in and, filled in a bit of that gap, I believe.
I think for myself, I still love this film, and I think what I did enjoy about this, retroactively looking back, is they do actually tie up a lot of plot points. We know from the very beginning that some of the main crew are heading off. Riker is going to be heading up the Titan. He's no longer going to be the second in command, and Marina Sirtis is going to be coming with him. By the end of the film, we've done something that we don't generally do, which is we kill off, we eradicate a central character to the plot, which for myself, who has such a love and a tie to Next Gen, not only was I emotionally affected by that, despite knowing for years that that's Data's end trajectory, I appreciate that they did something that they obviously knew, or I assume would know, to be controversial. In taking a character of Data and giving him such a tragic end, given what his character is meant to represent. It's the pursuit of excellence, the pursuit of being more than you are.
Yeah.
And then aside from that, I have to say, as somebody who, again, has a love for both the old series and some of the J.J. Abrams films, specifically not Into Darkness, but I loved Beyond. I loved the original Trek. I was very appreciative of the attempt to add a little bit more action, a little bit more stakes in that regard. It does come off a little bit difficult because obviously Picard and the others aren't as readily able to pull off some of those action scenes, especially because Star Trek spends a lot of its time preaching this idea that at all costs avoid conflict. It is all about diplomacy. It is all about finding the least violent solution to do that, and it should only be as a last resort. Whereas there is a little bit of a blasé attitude to death and killing, even from the members of the Enterprise and Starfleet, which was interesting. But overall, I think I came away from this film feeling that even if I didn't have a satisfying conclusion for all the characters, I felt as a group and as a kind of a communal effort between all of them, it felt like a nice send-off for Enterprise. And I guess that's also knowing that there will be, in the end, some more future tie-offs in the Picard series, in all these other things. But and I also recognize that I'm colored by the fact that I am a Star Trek fan, but also from what I've seen of reviews, that has enabled people in feeling emboldened to hate it even more.
Well, so it seems. Yeah, it is curious. It does feel like a film that potentially... I can understand the negative feedback to it. I can understand why general audiences felt a little alienated, why action fans felt a little underwhelmed, and why Star Trek fans felt a little put out by some of the things that were very un-Trekky. Ultimately, I do still feel it is possible. Like, I remember when Beyond came out, I think Simon Pegg came out and said you just couldn't make a movie like Star Trek the Motion Picture or the early Treks anymore. I do think you could. I mean, Arrival, for example, maybe not the mega blockbuster. I mean, okay, this is what he means. You can't make that movie that cost as much as the J.J. Abrams Treks cost and make as much money as the Abrams Treks made. That I do believe is true. If you're willing to scale it back a bit and accept that you can appeal to a smaller but very loyal fan base, I think you can still make movies which are largely based on character-driven drama and sort of scientific ideas and discussion.
This is the problem, isn't it? Is that the inability for companies and production houses to take established and high-earning franchises and scale back that budget.
Well, that's it. Mid-budget movies in general.
Like, yeah. I don't understand why you can't take a Star Trek film and go, let's give it a $60, $70 million budget, which is still a big amount of money.
Sure.
And make a great film that audiences will see. Like, yeah. I feel very, very confident if you were to make a $50, $60 million budget Star Trek film today, you would make your money back and then some.
Yeah, sure. I think it would go down really well. But anyway... Let's get into it now. Let's get into the things that we liked about Star Trek Nemesis.
Oh, the one better thing, my final one. Oh.
Not the one better thing yet. We're quick firing.
Oh, quick firing. That's what I mean. The final quick fire. The last quick fire.
Oh my god. Quick fire.
Ooh, okay, let's jump to the top here. You know what? I just loved the egregious, as I said earlier on in the podcast, the dad-like best man speech. As somebody who has been to several wedding ceremonies, and I remember the last one that I went to, felt like it was... It was like a 20-minute speech where 18 minutes of it felt like a character assassination from the dad to the groom.
Oh, wow.
And then the last 2 minutes was poignant and emotional and evocative. And I was like, yeah, I felt that energy with Patrick Stewart a little bit.
Yeah, there were some burns which were quite amusing. to hear from Patrick Stewart. I enjoy the gross dying effect at the beginning when all of the counselors are sort of given this radiation thing. It dries them out completely, and then they sort of fall over and crumble on the floor. I thought that looked really good.
I fundamentally enjoy any time that Patrick Stewart is genuinely having just the fucking time of his life. And no more so, again, than when he got to drive the buggy. I don't know whether any of that was on location with him actually in the buggy, or if all of it was the green screen front-on shot that he got to do. But when Sir Patrick Stewart is laughing and giggling, I'm right there with him.
What I read is that he did everything except that initial flying out of the bay and then the sort of dramatic turn. Aside from that, apparently that was him, so which is good fun.
Good on him. That's why he agreed to do the film.
What a scene where I get to drive a cool car. All right,
I want to drive a buggy.
I thought the Make It So was really cute.
I wish you both clear horizons, my good friends. Make it so.
Yes. Well, I'll then jump back then. It's one of the only lines that both Worf and Geordi properly get to do, and I just think it's a fun little interaction and delivered really well, which is...
Are you all right?
Romulan ale should be illegal.
It is.
Love that. Yeah, I wanted to see more of Geordi. He seemed really interesting.
Oh, he's so great.
There's a line that Data has where I think he says, ladies, gentlemen, and transgender species.
Ladies and gentlemen, and invited transgendered species.
Yes!
Hooray!
I was like, hooray!
I thought, I mean, we can be a transgender species, but okay, it's still a cute thing to include.
It's inclusive Data, and you know what? Yeah. I am shocked, even with something as progressive as Star Trek, that is included. That's what, 23 years ago? Yeah.
Good stuff.
Oh yeah, sorry, my turn. Just in general, in the early half an hour, I love what felt very like nostalgic Star Trek wholesomeness before they get into the meat and potatoes of what Star Trek can be. I've always loved that 90s inspirational, hopeful idea of what this utopia is and how people come together as a community. I think really showing the community aspect of the universe and what the ideal idea of Starfleet and these friends and families of co-workers are meant to be. It's just really lovely.
That's lovely. On the other end of the spectrum, I thought the dream invasion sequence was suitably creepy.
Yes.
I thought it was very good, and there's a deleted scene of another one happening as well, which is also, and again, more of that stuff would be great. More of the idea of him having this sort of horrific mind invasion thing with Counselor Troy and how that then affects Riker. There's a lot of stuff in there that could have been developed a little more, but nevertheless, the idea of the sort of invasion was, unsettling.
I did wonder whether that was one of the deleted scenes, because that made sense from a rule of three's perspective, is to have two invasions from Viceroy to Troy, and then the third time it's the opposite. You subvert.
Yeah, that's what I saw, yeah.
So for me, sometimes shitty Star Trek gadgets are my favorite, and I love that they've condensed an entire ship's flying capabilities to a joystick for Data to use. Fabulous. So good.
I think after they capture Picard, Tom Hardy just has the line, he walks in and is just very casual. Hello, Jean-Luc.
Hello, Jean-Luc.
Yeah.
Hello, Jean-Luc.
Hello. It's very camp and quite amusing.
We talked about this earlier, but to me, I wrote down political combat meeting talk. Just when they take the moment to all sit down as the senior members of a crew and discuss what it is to be done, what they've discovered, and what their next plan is. And I can sit with this crew debating the merits and the tactics of their mission. I can have a full half hour of that. So that, to me, felt very quintessentially Trek.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's good stuff. And I enjoy sort of any sequence in which sort of foes emerge and then turn out to be allies. So I did enjoy when the Romulan ship shows up and asks if it can be of assistance. I thought that was a good little moment.
Speaking of meetings, I loved the initial meeting of Shinzon and Picard, and particularly the use of spatial tension between all the characters. Without them even having to say a word, you understand the threat that Shinzon represents. just through the sheer use of space, of distance, of facial expressions. And that seems to occur every time Shinzon's on screen with any other character. You understand what he represents as a character and the danger that he represents to anyone else.
Yeah. I really enjoyed Ron Perlman's coat in the fight against Riker. He's got a good long coat, and I thought it looked...
flourishing coat.
Yeah, it's a flourishing coat. I thought it looked really good in all the sequences where he has to jump over stuff and sort of vault things. I thought that looked good.
You get the good Foley of the...
Oh my god, speaking of Foley, Jesus Christ, the squeaking that emerged from Tom Hardy's outfit in pretty much every sequence of him being on screen is delightful and delicious. And I'm
the
very
latex
of that. Yeah.
One of my favorite aspects of this entire film is the chemistry between Patrick Stewart and Tom Hardy. It is palpable between the two of them. I could have had many more scenes between the two of them, especially before the twist of, right, I am actually an evil son of a bitch. Like, just them trying to puzzle each other out, Picard especially, and having their philosophical ideas of nature versus nurture and really teasing out that theme. And even once they get into their combative nature, it's just, I could watch those two on screen forever.
That would have been nice. That would have been nice to have had more of that. Yeah, okay, well, I think that leads into my last one then, which is before I had seen this particular film, I was aware of the fact that there was a screen test of Tom Hardy available, which is essentially the sequence in which Picard and Shinzon meet and discuss what his plans are, and he reveals his backstory. And there's a very good sort of side-by-side comparison of Tom Hardy in the audition, and both of them in the audition, you know, then compared to the actual performance in the film. And the audition tape is, I think, better. You know, Hardy is really good in the audition, and Picard, you know, Patrick Stewart is very natural. But even more so than in the film, it does that thing of just absolutely stripping away the artifice of the whole thing and just making you feel this connection between the two characters. But I do think Tom Hardy in general did a very good job here.
Well, I've got a couple more here. First of all, I'll just get the simple ones out the way. CGI, good.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed the 2002 CGI, and it was actually super passable. I don't know if I'm seeing a updated, remastered version at all, or if it just is as is. But I thoroughly enjoyed a lot of the external shots of the ship, and especially, in particular, the slow colliding of the Enterprise into the scimitar, and you get to see a lot of the panels of the exterior just getting ripped off of the ship and embedding itself into one another. That was just such a fascinating sequence to watch. My favorite line of the entire film, which was, oh my goodness, so delicious from Tom Holland, which is,
I'm afraid you won't survive to witness the victory of the echo over the voice.
It's a beautiful line, and it sums up everything that Tom Holland thinks about himself, his situation, and Picard. The Viceroys know when he realizes that that he's been, for lack of a better term, penetrated mentally by Marina Sirtis, by Troy. And once she gets the location of where they are, just the... Fuck. Like, fuck. She got me. The final ones I have is, I appreciate the restraint of Riker not giving a one-liner after he sends a Viceroy to his death.
Yep, love that. Although, again, I just did not get the impression he was the kind of guy to one-line.
He has many times. I do love that the time that they leave to allow Data's death to sit immediately on the crew. Usually a lot of films will have to obviously continue on with the fight or the action, and then only do they have the funeral scene or things like that after, in the scene afterwards. I like that they gave a good minute for each character to emote, to feel, to let it resonate, and then Picard just simply leaves the room. And then finally, just the introduction of a song at the end. Of B4 humming the little tune at the end, which was just kind of heart-wrenching, but also very lovely at the same time.
Lovely. Fantastic. Well, there you go. Those are our quick fires. Now let's check in with the OG team.
Ooh.
Now, Jenny on Blue Sky says, I hope that someone has something to say. All that I can remember over the last few hours is the strange and wonderful casting of Tom Hardy as the Picard clone. Absolutely strange and wonderful indeed. He does have this ethereal, otherworldly quality to him that you feel like is what they were going for with Eddie Redmayne in Jupiter Ascending. They wanted that sort of slightly fey but very authoritative kind of strange otherworldly kind of thing, which doesn't quite land with Eddie Redmayne, but works well.
It's very interesting as well because one of the front runners was Jude Law.
Yes, I saw that because they felt he resembled a young Picard. Yeah, it's curious. You don't necessarily see the resemblance voice-wise or, facially between him and Picard, but I do love the idea that this is just him through a different lens, having having experienced a very different upbringing. Luke Ciancio over on Patreon says, Tom Hardy is pretty good in it, I felt. The Remans as a concept is an interesting one that you don't see much of outside this film in wider Star Trek canon. The costuming of the Romulans and Remans, although not very Star Trek, does have interesting aesthetic appeal. Good stuff. It is curious, like, the gaps, because I'm aware that Romulans, have existed as a thing for a long time in the Star Trek universe, and the idea that their coat of arms featured 2 planets, and obviously Romulus and Remus is a famous duo in sort of mythology. It's the idea that they just, we had a look. It doesn't look like they've ever written about the other planet, so we'll just make that Remus and we'll make up this scenario about it. It's very interesting, the sort of gaps in the lore that you can then fit into.
But also, I feel like what's great about it is it's these gaps in the lore that aren't. It's not that they're retconning anything that's going, here's something that hasn't been explored yet. Wouldn't that be interesting? And let's touch on it because yes, Romulans was such a huge part of Next Gen and some of the other series, but the Remus had not been touched on at all, really.
Right. Curious. They first appeared in they actually first appeared in the original Star Trek. And they've been in most of them since. Good Lord.
Yes.
Wow. Well, there you go. Well, thank you very much. OG Team.
OG Team.
Fabulous work. Now let's talk about the one better thing. The one better thing. Sean, what have you got for us?
I'm going to go a little bit left of center. Because I think Nemesis is great, and I'm not going to tell you to go watch other Star Trek because you should be doing that anyway. But the one thing I will do is we've talked a little bit about LeVar Burton, and we're a podcast. So one thing that I would love people to do is there's a podcast that finished up about a year or so ago, but it has about 10 years worth of episodes. It is a continuation of, so for those who don't know, LeVar Burton years ago was on PBS, the American public channel, called Reading Rainbows, The More You Know.
Oh,
That's
yes.
Reading
Yeah,
Rainbows. He was the host for it, where he just read to children, basically, stories, and talked about the value and espoused his passion for reading and storytelling. Well, he created a podcast called LeVar Burton Reads, where he reads short stories to a more adult audience. And he cuts through a wide swathe of different genres and styles and themes, and he is a prolific voice actor and storyteller and reader, and I think there is something for everyone in those stories, and they usually go minimum 40 minutes, sometimes longer, and it's a shame that he's stopped. I think he's earned a break, but LeVar Burton Reads, so if anyone is listening to this,
Beautiful.
chuck it on, listen to an episode and see what you think.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, I was trying to think of an unusual doppelganger film to recommend, because there's a fairly rich lore of doppelganger films out there, but they're quite well known. I thought one obscure one I might recommend is the 2022 Finnish horror movie Hatchling. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it in its original Finnish, but it's about a young woman who is being very heavily pressured by her sort of perfect mother to perform well in life, including in gymnastics. One day she finds an egg, brings it home, the egg grows to a huge sort of size, and then from it hatches this horrific creature, which then over time becomes more and more like her. It's a really fascinating exploration of of unrealistic expectations, of putting too much pressure on kids, and also, of the doppelganger sort of reality and the idea of the emotions that you've suppressed kind of making themselves felt in unusual and slightly terrifying ways. So that's that. And then the thing is, I was never a big Star Trek fan as a kid. I tried with Voyager, and I wanted to get really into it, but I think my young mind just wasn't quite ready for it. I was a huge fan of Stargate, SG-1. I watched the absolute shit out of that show. And earlier on today, actually, weirdly, as I was working, I noticed that the Stargate film was on. The Roland Emmerich 1994... 1994 sci-fi movie, Stargate was on, and I tuned in, and it was past all the good bits, because famously, I've always held that movie is great in its build-up, and then the second they arrive on the desert planet, it just kind of loses interest. I was watching it on mute because I was trying to work, but my god, that movie is gorgeous. Roland Emmerich with cinematographer Carl Walter Lindenlaub. Wow. Like, all of the sequences in the desert and with the pyramid and with the alien ships and with Ra and his entourage and the helmets and everything, that is, to me, what a movie looks like, whereas Nemesis strays a little closer towards what television sort of looked like at the time. And the fact that, Star Trek was made, 8 years earlier? 7-8 years earlier, and for the same amount of money.
Yeah. Next Gen was in 1989 is when it started, I believe.
Oh, right, okay. Well, yeah, but the fact that Nemesis was made, so much after Stargate.
Yes.
And for the same
similar
amount of money, like, to me, this is a cinematic-looking film, and with that real aesthetic. And, I'd be curious to actually properly watch that again, because I wonder if it holds up a little better than I remember on my last watch view of the original Star Trek, and indeed all subsequent Roland Emmerich films. But, nevertheless, I'll have that as one better thing as well. So there's Star Trek.
Nice.
I think that's going to do it for the one better thing. The one better thing. So, Sean, how can people find out about your adventures and your schemes?
Oh, my goodness. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on OGT as much as you have. It's been a rollicking ride. I think the first time we were on was, early 2017?
Yeah,
probably.
Surf Ninjas. It was, I think, episode 30-something.
37 maybe? Something like that. Yeah.
Good Lord.
Back in the days where I could be bothered writing songs on the fly and performing it during the episode.
That. Oh my god.
So no, it's been awesome, and I just want to say first and foremost, it's been fantastic to find reasons to watch films that I otherwise wouldn't, and to kind of stick to the ethos of, as you said, no good film is without value.
Yeah.
No film is without value, essentially. And so it's been an honor and a privilege.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me engage.
No, thank you so much for coming on as many times as you have, for bringing the films that you have. It's been really wonderful to have you on, to have you and all of the one-time baby bearders now roll-to-casts. It's been incredible. So thank you so much
great
for coming back.
It's been great to go from all of us being on to us realizing that's too fucking hard to have 6 people on at the same time. Single from now on. Predator saw an end to that.
Yeah.
But sorry. As for myself, primarily you can find me on the podcast Roll to Cast, ROLE. We're a TTRPG podcast that plays a different game every season with an original story, original music, primarily commissioned by and composed by Paul Goodman, so you can hear a lot of his amazing music on the series. Other than that, find us, if you're currently in Adelaide, we're actually part of the Adelaide Fringe doing Roll to Cast Live, where we're doing 5 shows over 5 Saturdays from February 22nd to March 22nd. We're playing Dungeons & Dragons, Blade Runner, Warhammer, Star Trek Adventures, of all things, and Eat the Reich. Otherwise, the last place you can find me is I'm a wrestling announcer, commentator, and maybe soon to be sometimes performer. Who knows?
Fun.
For several promotions. So Wrestle Rampage, you can find their live shows on YouTube. Right City Wrestling, you can find their live shows. Their shows a week later after events on YouTube again. And also World Series Wrestling, which is on Triller TV, formerly Fight TV, which I'll be doing in a month's time from the 28th to the 31st of March. So yeah, a few things going on, a few fires that I need to put out, but that's me.
Fantastic. Well, look, you can find out more about OGT, One Good Thing by doing OGT Pod into any search engine you can find. Then there's Jen and the Film Critic, Quest Fantastic, all that other good stuff. So yeah, keep an eye on the episode description and you will see everything that you want to see and more. I'm Paul and more.
I'm that Sean guy.
And remember, the one good thing about Star Trek Nemesis is that it gave an early break to a little guy you and I might know as Jonathan Frakes. Also
Sean. Oh, damn.